This is a community-supported legal education channel. Find out how you can support our mission at the links in the description below. Something that we missed a few months ago was the update or the conclusion of the Tardigrades Star Trek Anas Osama Ibrahim Abdeen lawsuit. That's because it was decided here on August 17th, 2020, which was when Kaylee and I, quote unquote, renewed our wedding vows at our in-person ceremony, which I do remember seeing this come across the feed as I was going through my news as Kaylee was in the shower on our wedding night. But, it's our wedding night, so I didn't exactly, jump on producing a video about it and then totally forgot about it. So let's see what happened with the conclusion of the Tardigrades lawsuit. So this is Anas Abdeen versus CBS Broadcasting. He had appealed from the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, and he had appealed to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So this is before a 3-judge panel, Judge Chin, Judge Carney, and Judge Dooley, and so Judge Chin is writing. This copyright infringement case marks the latest lawsuit involving the iconic Star Trek series. Since Star Trek premiered in September 1966, courts have wrestled with copyright and trademark lawsuits involving the television series. Today, in the latest round of Star Trek-related litigation, we are asked to boldly go where no court has gone before and determine whether the television series Star Trek Discovery, a recent addition in the franchise, unlawfully infringed upon a game developer's video game concept involving a tardigrade, a real-life microscopic organism with the unique ability to survive in space. In 2014, plaintiff appellant Anas Osama Ibrahim Abdeen submitted a version of his science fiction video game to several online forums and websites. The video game was initially introduced May 8, 2014 under the name Epic, before Abdeen changed the name to Tardigrades on February 22, 2015. As the title of the video game suggests, the game featured a tardigrade traveling in space. 2 years later, on September 24, 2017, defendant appellees, CBS Broadcasting, Netflix, etc., premiered their latest installment in a Star Trek series, Star Trek Discovery. Discovery featured in 3 episodes a tardigrade named Ripper and followed the space adventures of its newest Starfleet crew. Abdeen brought this copyright infringement action alleging that in making Discovery, defendants copied elements of his video game, including not only the tardigrade, but the plot, mood, characters, and overall feel as well. For the reasons set forth below, we agree with the district court that Abdeen failed to plausibly allege substantial similarity between his video game and Discovery. Accordingly, the district court's judgment dismissing his Third Amendment complaint is affirmed. Background. The tardigrade, also known as a water bear or moss piglet, is a microscopic 8-legged animal less than 1 millimeter in length. As reported in Smithsonian Magazine, most tardigrades are found on moss or the bottom of lakes feeding on bacteria or plant life. Some have been found, however, surviving in boiling hot springs and buried under layers of ice on Himalayan mountaintops. Further, experiments have shown that tardigrades are able to survive being frozen and heated to extreme temperatures and can withstand pressure and radiation thousands of times stronger than what a human could survive. Tardigrades can survive in such conditions due to their ability to enter a dehydrated state that closely resembles death. This state involves a tardigrade curling up into a ball called a tun and reducing its metabolic activity to as low as 0.01%, so not just 1%, but another 1% of that, of normal levels. A tardigrade can survive as a tun for over a decade, returning to its normal metabolic state in a few hours when immersed in water. When encountering other environmental stresses, tardigrades undergo additional transformations. If the oxygen in their water medium drops too low, they can stretch into a long, relaxed state to increase their water and oxygen intake. And if they encounter freezing conditions, they form a special cold-resistant tun that helps prevent the formation of ice crystals on their body. Scientists believe the tardigrade's ability to survive in outer space derives from their ability to survive extreme conditions on Earth. In 2007, a group of European researchers conducted the first research project to evaluate the ability of tardigrades to survive under open space conditions known as tardigrades in space, or TARDIS. They exposed a sample of dehydrated tardigrades to the vacuum and solar radiation of outer space for 10 days. The tardigrades were able to survive space vacuum without loss, and some even survived combined exposure to space vacuum and solar radiation. Given their findings, the researchers declared the experiment to represent the first record of an animal surviving simultaneous exposure to space, vacuum, and solar/galactic radiation. 2 additional experiments involving tardigrades in space were conducted, one by the Russian Federal Space Agency and the other by the Italian Space Agency. I didn't know the Italians had a space agency. As reported in Scientific American, the Russian Federal Space Agency arranged for a space probe to carry samples of Earth life to one of Mars' moons. Tardigrades were among the organisms chosen for the experiment due to their ability to repair DNA damage. In addition, BBC Nature reported in 2011 that the Italian Space Agency sponsored a project to investigate the impact of short-duration spaceflight on a number of microscopic organisms. One experiment, the TARDKISS, planned to expose colonies of tardigrades to different levels of ionizing radiation during the spaceflight to help determine how radiation affects the way tardigrade cells work. Overall, while not crediting the truth of the matters asserted in these studies, the court notes that the tardigrades' unique ability to survive in extreme conditions, including apparently the vacuum of space, has been the subject of scientific research and public discussion. Tardigrades have also been the subject of fictional works, in addition to the works at issue in this case. In 2010, a children's fantasy novel featured Otto, a gargantuan tardigrade that was the size of an elephant in The Search for Wandla. In 2013, a science fiction novel referred to the ability of tardigrades to resist radiation. That's The Science of Discworld 4, Judgment Day.
Captain Tardigrade, Defender of the Multiverse.
Wow.
Episode 236, Escape from the Nematodes.
Do you think we escaped the evil nematodes, Captain Tardigrade?
Yeah, probably. Now, as I was saying, my epic
Okay, just wow, that's awesome. Between 2014 and July 2017, Abdeen posted draft designs, video trailers, descriptions of a science fiction script on his personal blog, YouTube, social media, online forums, promoting his unreleased video game concept. None of the video or internet content published between May 2014 and September 2017 was registered for copyright. And remember, you need to register your copyright so you have access to statutory damages and attorney's fees when you win, right? Like that's very important to register your copyrights. On June 28th, 2018, Abdeen registered a copyright for the distillation of the video game concept, and that's probably because you can't sue either until you have registered your copyright, according to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think it was the Rimini Street versus Oracle case. It was either that or the wall-street.org or .com case. I'll see if I can post a bubble. The Distillation is a 23-page compilation of images, descriptions, and illustrations providing details of the video game's characters and backstory. In general, the video game is a point-and-click adventure game about a civilization that existed in 20,000 BC and discovered intergalactic travel using their latest technologies. The video game follows a protagonist, Carter, a blonde male botanist who lives on a space station orbiting the planet Jupiter. Carter communicates with the other characters and explores the space station and other planets to solve puzzles. The video game has 2 possible endings and tens of ways to complete its puzzles, which are triggered randomly at any time of the gameplay. In short, the video game is interactive, and the individual playing the game, the player, can alter the story based on the player's attitude. In dialogues, tasks, choices, and/or random events, the player is basically writing the story of the game. The essential elements of the possible video game storylines can be drawn from vignettes in the Distillation and video trailers published by Abdeen online. The video game explores space travel and contains themes involving adventure, romance, slavery, secrecy, and espionage. An important character in the video game is the giant blue tardigrade. The Distillation notes that tardigrades can withstand extreme temperatures from between negative 458 Fahrenheit up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit and are the first known animals to survive in space. The Distillation depicts Carter being absorbed into the tardigrade, becoming one with the tardigrade, and having the tardigrade's abnormal powers. With assistance from the tardigrade, Carter discovered instantaneous space travel by traveling through a wormhole, i.e. a theoretical method of folding space and time so that one could connect 2 places in space together. Using essentially the same image, the video trailers and teasers also show a blue tardigrade enveloping Carter and then moving through space. The Distillation also provides biographical descriptions and images of some of the video game's characters. These biographies describe a diverse cast of characters with different physical features, races, occupations, sexual orientations, and ages. The player can control various characters and have Carter interact with these characters throughout the video game. Discovery is the latest installment of the Star Trek television series. Star Trek made its television debut in 1966 and followed the adventures of the USS Enterprise and its crew as they traveled through space during the 23rd century. The seminal science fiction series has undoubtedly shaped the genre, and many of its characters, such as Kirk and Spock, have become household names. In general, the original Star Trek and its accompanying spin-offs are set in a distant future where humans and aliens travel through space and coexist. The United Federation of Planets includes among its citizens humans from the planet Earth, as well as Vulcans, who are known for their preference for rationality and logic, as well as beings from other planets. The Federation employs a fleet of spacecraft that travel through the galaxy, Starfleet, and has a history of conflict with the Klingons, a militaristic alien species from the planet Kronos. The Star Trek series chronicles multiple space adventures where a variety of characters explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations, and boldly go where no one has gone before. Phrases that you never thought you'd be saying as a lawyer on your YouTube show. Starfleet must always abide by the Prime Directive, a principle that prohibits its members from interfering with the development of alien civilizations. Discovery, the 7th series in the Star Trek franchise, premiered on September 24th, 2017. The first season of Discovery introduces the backstory of its lead character, Michael Burnham, and sets up the Klingon War, taking place approximately 11 years before the events of the original Star Trek series. The Discovery, commissioned as a science and exploratory vessel, has been forced to become a warship, and has a new mission to find a way to win the war and pursue any avenue to achieve this objective and save the Federation from the Klingons. Pursuant to this mission, Captain Gabriel Lorca has been searching for any and all types of weapons and technology that would give them an advantage over the Klingons. One such advanced technology, the displacement-activated Spore Hub drive, allows a spaceship to travel on the mycelial spore network and instantaneously travel to any location in the universe. The dash drive is fueled by a fungus called mycelium. Despite maintaining a greenhouse full of spore-producing mycelium, however, the crew has not been able to depend on the dash drive because it is unreliable, lacked the ability to maintain navigational stability to make long jumps across the universe accurately. The first season of Discovery featured 15 episodes. One of the main storylines in 3 of the episodes involved a creature named Ripper, a huge and seemingly dangerous beast that resembles a massive version of Earth's microanimals, the tardigrade. Burnham discovers that Ripper shares qualities similar to those of an Earth-based tardigrade, such as the unique ability to survive extreme heat and sub-freezing temperatures, including the vacuum of space. At first, Burnham and her colleagues see Ripper as an inherently hostile creature, as it kills numerous Starfleet crew members as well as a dozen fully armed Klingons, hence its nickname Ripper. Burnham later determines, however, that Ripper was acting in self-defense and is not inherently violent. In connection with the dash drive, Burnham also discovers that Ripper and the mycelial spores have a symbiotic connection and can communicate with one another. The crew then uses Ripper as a supercomputer to guide the dash drive and successfully perform several jumps across the universe. It becomes apparent, however, that Ripper experiences a physical toll each time he is connected to the dash drive, as it collapses into what appears to be a tun, the state characteristic of distressed real-life tardigrades. After Captain Lorca is captured by the Klingons and the Discovery must travel a great distance to rescue him, one of the Discovery crew members injects himself with Ripper's DNA and connects himself to the dash drive in place of Ripper. Yes, because that's how DNA works. This proves to be successful as the ship is able to jump and the captain is saved. Then Ripper recovers, Burnham releases it into space, and Ripper departs through the subspace mycelial spore network. Like other Star Trek spin-offs, Discovery continues many of the narrative staples common to Star Trek, including exploring the definition of life and how to protect it. Discovery's treatment of the tardigrade is a prime example, as the crew members struggle with whether the tardigrade is a sentient being and whether it is being exploited or abused. Likewise, the series inherits episodic elements from earlier Star Trek series, including a classic prison escape episode and a daring rescue mission episode. The Discovery series also makes numerous references to earlier series through its portrayal of Discovery as being part of Starfleet, as well as its inclusion of Vulcans, Spock and his father Sarek, Klingons. Yes, I've watched Star Trek before. Klingons. It sounds like a former romantic partner of mine, a Klingon. Klingons, and characters such as a young version of Harry Mudd and Captain Christopher Pike, all staples of the original Star Trek series. So what does a classic prison escape episode and daring rescue mission episode sound like in copyright law? That sounds like Faire. That sounds like the basic background scenes that you need to have in order to write an episode that's compelling and people will watch. So you can't have a copyright on classic prison escape or daring rescue mission. Defendants moved to dismiss a third amendment complaint on grounds that discovery is not substantially similar. The district court granted that. September 20th, 2019, Abdeen appealed. The district court concluded that with their common characteristics, the 8 short legs, O-shaped mouth, center of the face, and the ability to survive in space without protection are all unprotectable facts that could not provide the basis for a copyright infringement claim. Reminder that copyright does not protect facts, nor does copyright protect anything that you didn't create. So, if there is something that's prior art, not in the patent sense, but in other words, if you didn't create He-Man and then your movie or video or story has He-Man in it, well, you probably can't have the copyright to He-Man because you didn't create it. Maybe under some fair use or with enough changes or something, you can create your own version of He-Man, but you probably can't just use somebody else's creation in your creation and then claim copyright over it. Let me give you a more concrete example. Imagine that I use Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in my work. Because any currently made production of Beethoven's Fifth would be copyrighted, let's pretend that I'm only using the public domain work from the original. And then I make my own, I have an orchestra hired, or I do some MIDI work on my workstation here, and I make my own version of Beethoven's Fifth. While I own the copyright to my production of it, in the sense that I have a recording that I made of it, sure, that doesn't mean that I own the underlying sheet music that I used, that was in the public domain. That remains in the public domain. Further, with respect to Abdeen's character infringement claim, the district court held that they also failed to support a copyright infringement claim, as they are mostly generalized, non-protectable descriptions. Finally, applying the more discerning observer test, because Abdeen's video game contained protectable and unprotectable elements, such as scientific facts or Faire, the court also concluded that the parties' works were not substantially similar in their overall feel, contrasting Discovery's overarching themes drawn from prior renditions of Star Trek with disparate videos and images comprising Abdeen's work. So, not to be insulting or anything, but Abdeen's work was incomplete. It was just sort of this treatment, this idea that was then outlined by his expression, but it wasn't a complete video game. It wasn't a complete story. It wasn't nearly as fully fleshed as the Star Trek characters and plots and themes and things were. So he needed to be more detailed, basically, in order to have his works fully protectable. If he was more detailed, I bet you would see that the differences were even more different. So his general ideas could not encompass or absorb or vacuum up Star Trek's expression, because his ideas were just ideas and not detailed enough for anybody to be able to say that he owns a copyright on tardigrades in space, basically, to make it. That's a little bit disingenuous, because it was more detailed than tardigrades in space. But if you think of it that way, if you think of it hyperbolically, he had a copyright, or said he had a copyright on tardigrades in space, and so Star Trek used a tardigrade in space. Therefore, his thought was that they infringed on his copyright, and that's just not nearly how that works. So, the court starts a de novo review, which means brand new. We are on Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b6, which is failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. So you can state a claim, but if you can't state a claim that there's a law that when operating on your claims, the law can't grant you relief, well, you don't get relief, you get dismissed. So that's what that means. Failure to state a claim, failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, or failure of the law to operate in such a way that you could ever get relief or could ever have a viable claim. So any of that means you can be dismissed under 12b6. The court draws all reasonable inferences in the plaintiff's favor. That's the motion to dismiss standard. So what's an inference? If there's some fact or some allegation that the parties haven't quite given a clear record on, it's not easy to say, well, this is this and this is this, the court can infer things, and the court will make those inferences in the favor of the Nasabdeen tardigrades. And so it's the best standard in favor of a Nasabdeen. If he can't survive that standard, then it's very easy to dismiss the case. That's the standard. So we also review the substantial similarity determination. To establish a claim of copyright infringement, 2 elements must be proven. 1, ownership of a valid copyright, and 2, copying of constituent elements of the work that are original. To satisfy the second element, a plaintiff must demonstrate that 1, a defendant has actually copied the plaintiff's work, and 2, the copying is illegal because a substantial similarity exists between the defendant's work and the protectable elements of plaintiff's work. The standard test for substantial similarity between 2 items is whether an ordinary observer, unless he set out to detect the disparities, would be disposed to overlook them and regard the aesthetic appeal as the same. Whereas in this case, the work incorporates unpredictable elements from the public domain, we apply a more discerning observer test, which requires substantial similarity between those elements and only those elements that provide copyrightability to the alleged infringed work. No matter which test is applied, we examine the similarities in such aspects as the total concept and feel, theme, characters, plot, sequence, pace, and setting. Even assuming that actual copying occurred, we affirm the district court's dismissal of the third amendment complaint on the grounds that Abdeen failed to plausibly allege substantial similarity between the protectable elements of his video game and elements from Discovery. 3 limitations on copyright protection are particularly relevant to Abdeen's appeal. First, facts and ideas are not protected by copyright. Facts do not owe their origin to an act of authorship. The distinction is between creation and discovery. The first person to find and report a particular fact has not created the fact. He or she has merely discovered its existence. Copyright does not protect ideas. It only protects the author's particularized expression of the idea. Second, also unprotectable are scènes Faire, which this court has described as sequences of events which necessarily flow from a common theme, and incidents, characters, or settings which are, as a practical matter, indispensable or at least standard in the treatment of a given topic. Third, generic and generalized character traits such as race, gender, and hair color are not protectable. The less developed the characters, the less they can be copyrighted. That is the penalty an author must bear for marking them too indistinctly. Facts are not copyrightable. Here, the district court properly concluded that all tardigrades have 8 short legs that run in pairs along a rounded body, an O-shaped mouth in the center of the face, and are capable of surviving in space without protection. These scientific facts are not copyrightable because they are part of the public domain and thus do not provide a basis for an infringement claim. All facts, scientific, historical, biographical, and news of the day, may not be copyrighted and are part of the public domain available to every person. Indeed, these facts have been employed in other creative works, as tardigrades have been the subject of books, videos, and other works of fiction. Likewise, the tardigrade's ability to survive in space has been reported and discussed in numerous scientific studies and thus has entered the public domain as a scientific fact. Copyright protection can only extend to original authorship, and the publication of facts, regardless of how much effort was expended in discovering them, is not original authorship. The author of a scientific article published in a professional journal is certainly not entitled to a monopoly on the ideas presented therein. Several published studies have evaluated the tardigrade's ability to survive in space by exposing the animal to space vacuum and radiation, and then they go into the TARDIS experiment that we described above. Similarly, ideas are not copyrightable, and the extension of tardigrades' known ability to survive in space into the ability to travel in space is an unprotectable idea. It is a fundamental principle of our copyright doctrine that ideas, concepts, and processes are not protected from copying. We have explained that protection granted to a copyrightable work extends only to the particular expression of an idea and never to the idea itself. To grant property status to a mere idea would permit withdrawing the idea from the stock of materials that would otherwise be open to other authors, thereby narrowing the field of thought open for development and exploitation. This effect would hinder, rather than promote, the professed purpose of the copyright laws, the progress of science and useful arts, which is literally Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the U.S. Constitution. In other words, as aptly put by Spock and Captain Kirk. In other words, as aptly put by Spock and Captain James T. Kirk in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. Oh, I got goosebumps. While the distinction between an idea and its expression is an elusive one, Abdeen's space-traveling tardigrade is an unprotectable idea because it is a generalized expression of scientific fact, namely, the known ability of a tardigrade to survive in space. Just as, for an example, an author's theory of who destroyed the Hindenburg based on historical facts is unprotectable, Abdeen's idea of a tardigrade moving through space based on the scientific fact that tardigrades can survive in space is also unprotectable. By permitting Abdeen to exclusively own the idea of a space-traveling tardigrade, this court would improperly withdraw that idea from the public domain and stifle creativity naturally flowing from the scientific fact that tardigrades can survive the vacuum of space. Without freedom, citing Star Trek, The Return of the Archons, without freedom of choice, there is no creativity. I really like this quote from this case. Without freedom of choice, there is no creativity. I wonder how that would affect an argument that when you play a video game, since there are multiple ways you can play, you can do nothing, you can mash the buttons, or you can carefully select what movements and buttons you press in order to convey your expression, in order to express your ideas of how to play the video game. The video game gives you the freedom of choice. You are the creativity. So wouldn't your inputs to a video game either be a fair use or at least be your own copyrightable expression? Maybe a game that is simply an interactive story might be less of a fair use or less of your own copyright, but what about a game that doesn't do anything at all unless you do the inputs? Or what about like Mario Paint, for example, would be a great example, more like a piece of software masquerading as a video game that you draw with the tools given to you. Obviously, that's a lot like Photoshop, and we know that people who use Photoshop, the output of the program is your copyrightable expression, not Adobe's, right? Well, same thing with Mario Paint. So somewhere in the spectrum there, then, you own a copyright on how you play Super Mario 64 or something, right? Because the game doesn't do anything unless you put creative input into the system. Just a thought. While Abdeen contends that the tardigrade-human interaction in the video game is sufficiently original to be protected under copyright, an independent comparison of the works reveals numerous differences between the tardigrade-human interaction in the video game and in Discovery that tend to undercut substantial similarity. As a matter of logic as well as law, the more numerous the differences between the two works, the less likely it is that they will create the same aesthetic impact, so that one will appear to have been appropriated from the other. More specifically, Abdeen focuses on the video game tardigrade's unique adventures with humans, such as assisting movement through space, its large size, as compared to its microscopic earthly counterparts and blue color. While Discovery's tardigrade indeed shares at least some of these features, there are significant differences. As to space travel, for example, in the video game, the tardigrade envelops a human being and the tardigrade flies through space with the person in it. In comparison, in Discovery, Ripper is confined into a glass chamber aboard Discovery, hooked up to the dash drive and used as a supercomputer to guide the ship as it jumps to different parts of the galaxy. As to physical traits, while the tardigrade in the video game is a luminescent blue, and Ripper does appear to be blue at times, it is primarily a darkish brown or greenish color, and its coloring seems to change. And there are some pictures here. Most significantly, while it is unclear what role the nameless tardigrade plays in the video game, Ripper is very much at the center of a fully developed story in episodes 3, 4, and 5 of the first season. It is given the nickname Ripper because it is first encountered attacking and killing numerous Starfleet personnel and Klingons. While Ripper is first believed to be inherently hostile, its character evolves as Burnham and her colleagues eventually discover that Ripper was violent only in self-defense and not a direct threat to life. While Burnham realizes that the crew's use of Ripper in the dash drive is doing it harm, she and others try to intervene, and when the jumps take too great a toll on Ripper, another crew member takes Ripper's place to facilitate the jumps. In the end, completing the story, Burnham and the Discovery crew determined to set Ripper free so that it might live long and prosper. Spoiler alert. In sum, even assuming Abdeen's original expressions of a space-traveling tardigrade may be protectable under copyright law, an independent comparison of the works reveals that there is no substantial similarity between the protectable features of Abdeen's tardigrade and Ripper from Discovery. Faire. To be sure, even if Abdeen's expression of the tardigrade surpassed an unparticularized rendering of the idea of a tardigrade, the features and themes involving space travel would still be unprotectable as Faire, elements that are, as a practical matter, indispensable or at least standard in the science fiction genre. Certain elements of works can be unprotectable under the doctrine of Faire, elements of a work that are indispensable or at least standard in the treatment of a given topic, like cowboys, bank robbers, and shootouts in stories of the American West, get no protection. See the Crichton case, holding that electric fences, automated tours, dinosaur nurseries, and uniformed workers are typical Faire that flow from the unprotectable idea of a dinosaur zoo. Didn't Michael Crichton write Jurassic Park? Is that where that's coming from? I think that's where that's coming from. Copyright protection does not extend to stock themes commonly linked to a particular genre. Here, the science fiction genre typically involves stock themes, such as space travel, supernatural forces, war games, alien discovery, and adventuring through space. For example, themes of spaceships and space exploration have been commonplace in the science fiction genre since at least the early 1900s. See A Trip to the Moon, classic silent film depicting space travel to the moon. How do you say George Méliès? I have no idea. I'm not even going to try. Flash Gordon, a serial film featuring a rocket ship flown to the planet Mongo. Buck Rogers, serial film featuring a spaceship flown to Saturn. Megacorp, a case. The popularity of the theme of spaceships and space warriors and related subjects is well known, and the success of the motion picture Star Wars and the success of Star Trek and other such vehicles is something this court can judicially note. And FASA Corp versus Playmates, that's Playmates and Toys put together, everyone. FASA Corp versus Playmates Toys, describing war fought in the far reaches of space. FASA Corp, isn't that Battletech? And yeah, I think that's probably what that's going to be. Further, alien encounters are also a generic theme that routinely appear throughout the science fiction genre and is not entitled to copyright protection, and they give a bunch more examples. Likewise, copyright does not protect generic themes and storylines involving aliens or advanced technology, and they give some examples. Here, we have little trouble concluding that many of the alleged similarities in the parties' works, ergo, the use of a spaceship, space travel, and alien encounters, are unprotectable elements that follow naturally from a work's theme rather than from a author's creativity. Likewise, the basic idea of a tardigrade traveling in space is a natural extension of tardigrade's known ability to survive in space. Similarly, the idea of a tardigrade facilitating space travel is also unprotectable. In sum, numerous elements that Abdeen alleges are unlawful similarities between the works are simply not protected by copyright law because they are Faire, typical of the science fiction genre. Character similarities. We also agree with the district court's conclusion that the similarities between the characters in the video game and those in Discovery are mostly generalized and non-protectable. Courts in this circuit have routinely denied character infringement claims sharing far more similar characteristics and features. Alexander v. Murdoch, dismissing a claim where both characters shared the same sex and hair color, as well as mannerisms. Cabell versus Sony Pictures, granting summary judgment where characters were both military-trained hairstylists who fight crime with hair dryers as weapons. What? Here, several of the characters in the works share general and undeveloped similarities. Discovery's Michael Burnham and the video game's Yolanda are black females with curly, short brown hair. Carter from the video game and Discovery's Lieutenant Paul Stamets are both blonde white males who are scientists. Aziz, a space station technician in the video game, is a male with dark complexion, black hair, and beard, similar to Discovery's Hugh Culber, a doctor with a dark complexion, black hair, and a beard. Finally, Natasha in the video game and Discovery's Sylvia Tilly are both depicted as young white women with orange or red curly hair. There are also, however, significant differences in these characters. Yolanda is a communications engineer aboard the video game space station, while Burnham is the star and protagonist of Discovery who initially appears as a first officer on the starship Shenzhou. By episode 3, however, she has been convicted of mutiny and first appears on the Discovery as a prisoner, but she redeems herself and eventually is appointed science officer. Stamets is not just a scientist, but specifically an astromycologist, someone who studies space-based fungi. and he and Culver are lovers and birthmates aboard the Discovery. Natasha is a major rival in the distillation, while Tilly is a cadet who is also Burnham's friend and birthmate aboard the Discovery. While the characters do share some traits, such as hair color, race, and profession, the video game's many characters have a wide range of physical traits, and the suggestion that a copyright infringement claim can be based on such generic and common characteristics is highly illogical. Courts in this circuit have long held that such stock similarities are non-protectable generalized traits that cannot support a plausible character infringement claim. Similarities of age, sex, and status are a basic character type not protected under copyright. A stock character or basic character type, however, is not entitled to copyright protection. We agree with the district court that there is no substantial similarity between the characters because the alleged similarities are generic and undeveloped. Total concept and feel. Finally, in addition to the 3 limitations on copyright discussed above, where the total concept and feel of competing works is different, we will not find infringement. In this vein, our independent comparison of the 2 works confirms that the total concept and feel of the video game is different from that of Discovery. Discovery builds on decades of Star Trek plot lines, themes, and stories, referring back to original characters and settings from previous series taking place in the same universe involving the same everlasting conflict between the Federation and the Klingons. For example, like previous renditions of Star Trek, Discovery includes storylines depicting Klingons and the Human-Vulcan alliance. Discovery follows the Klingon character Vok, who is tasked with the mission to keep the Klingon houses together. Discovery also highlights the difficulties of the dynamic between humans and Vulcans that was first explored in the original Star Trek in the relationship between Leonard McCoy and Spock. Most clearly, Burnham is the adopted daughter of Spock's parents, his father Sarek, a Vulcan, and his mother Amanda, a human. Burnham's interactions with her adopted father and the Human-Vulcan alliance further allude to earlier renditions of Star Trek. Discovery also answers questions posed in previous Star Trek series, such as the tensions leading to the Klingon War depicted in the original series. In contrast, the video game's total concept and feel is unclear, as it is composed of multiple, disjointed vignettes depicting interactions among 7 characters. While the plot of the video game, which takes place in 20,000 BC as opposed to the distant future, follows Carter, a blonde male botanist living in space, and contains themes including slavery, secrecy, and espionage, the total concept and feel is not substantially similar when compared to the consistent plot lines presented in Discovery. Abdeen's short video teasers and trailers reveal only that Tardigrades appears to be a point-and-click game heavily focused on the completion of puzzles to explore space. The trailers also suggest that the video game appears to have an ancient Egyptian mythological influence. In comparison, Discovery is a fully developed science fiction television series continuing established Star Trek storylines with well-known characters and crossovers to original Star Trek themes and plots. In conclusion, we hold that Abdeen failed to plausibly allege substantial similarity between Discovery and the video game as a matter of law. Overall, the presence of Ripper the Tardigrade in Discovery is minimal, as it only appears in 3 episodes. The main storyline in Discovery focuses on the continuation of storylines beginning in the original Star Trek series and continuing through the decades of Star Trek spin-offs and movies. Thus, after extracting the unprotectable elements from Abdeen's video game, the scientific facts, general ideas, science fiction themes constituting Faire, and generalized character traits, we hold that the video game and Discovery are not substantially similar because the protectable elements as described above are markedly different. The district court did not err in dismissing the Third Amendment complaint. For the reasons set forth above, the district court's judgment is affirmed. And I think that's the right result. This is not a statement on Anas Abdeen's creation that it's nothing or that it's stupid or that it's not at all any of that. In fact, it's a really cool concept for a video game, but the only way that anything's going to be copyright infringement of his game and story and all that is when his game and story is fully fleshed out, when he has added all the details. He can't stop at making generic characters and generic themes and building on a tardigrade only in idea and only in the smallest modicum of expression. He has to take it farther. And he still can. Like, this isn't any statement about his product being impossible or illegal. This is quite the opposite. All it's saying is that CBS did not take his idea, because even if they did see his tardigrade treatment and say, hey, we like the idea of a tardigrade in space, let's write a couple episodes in the theme of Star Trek. Well, anybody can do that. I could go write a series of Lawful Masses videos with tardigrades as lawyers on the Supreme Court, and that doesn't mean that I've stolen Anas Abdin's idea just because I got the idea for using tardigrades in something from Anas Abdin. That's okay. You're allowed to look at other people's works and say, okay, I like He-Man, just to use a callback from a previous example, I'm going to make my own, masculine superhero character. What I can't do is I can't make it He-Man, and I can't say by the power of Grayskull, I can't do exactly what I think it's Hanna-Barbera did in that cartoon. I have to make my own, and it can't be substantially similar. It has to be different enough that it is not substantially similar. Do that, and you can do whatever you want. Let's look at the other side of it. If Anas Abdin won, if the law really did support that all he has to do is say, I want to make a video game about a tardigrade traveling through space, and then no one else can make a video game or story or movie or episode or book or any expression about a tardigrade traveling through space, well, that would really stifle creativity, and that would not, quote unquote, promote the progress of science and the useful arts, as the judge said here, or judges said here in this opinion. So I think that's the right result. I hope that that's the end of, and I mean this politely, the distraction this has caused from Anas's creation, and I hope that he can get back to authoring the story that his fans want to see. This is not an insult about his idea and expression. This is just a legal conclusion that his creation was not enough, and CBS had not copied and made a substantially similar production from his idea and his expressions. So again, these are not judgments of the quality of each production. This is saying that it's not copyright infringement. That's all. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you agree, great. Let me know what in particular you agreed with the court. Did you think the strongest argument was Faire, or the strongest argument was the generic characters, or what was it? If you disagree, if you think that Anas Abdin's Tardigrade story was stolen or infringed by CBS, see if you can explain why. What was the thing that was so similar that it's substantial similarity? And how do you counter the court saying that we don't protect the genericness, we protect the specific, particularized expression? So let me know, and I look forward to your comments. And that's our show. Thanks for watching. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and this is Lawful Masses, your favorite legal news and education program here on YouTube, on Floatplane, and on Twitch. Thank you very much to our community supporters on patreon.com/ljfrench, on sponsors.com/law, on YouTube memberships, and on Floatplane. Floatplane subs, you will be here someday. We're trying to get a list of Floatplane subs somehow. Maybe I'll make a video for you to how to email me or something with your Floatplane sub so I can get you into the credits. Thank you to the $50 plus supporters: Joe Tyson, Wes Delj, Citizen of the Sovereign, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Spirit Bear, Andy, Benjamin Hitov, Stephen, Goliath Cleric, Ugly Grill, Shielo T, Rudolph Bescherer Jr., Jay Dixon, Hot Grills in Your Area, Oscar the Phrophet, Brandyn, Abel, Torpedan, IANAL, Cassandra, Curran, and ShadowTycho. And thank you to the $5 plus supporters, everyone scrolling on the LED screen behind me, the screen in front of me, and we'll do some kind of outro thing for you here so you can have a little bit of fun while you're listening to all this stuff. I am Leonard French. I love you all. I will see you in the videos. Have a safe and socially distanced Halloween, and I will see you in the videos that drop. Love you all. Bye. So that's our show. Thanks for watching. I'm Leonard French, your favorite Yeah, let me start that over again. I almost said thanks for calling.